Disgraced journalist and far-left extremist Rachel Gilmore appeared before committee to talk about Russian disinformation, and she proceeded to make a complete fool of herself. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. Rachel Gilmore, a far-left extremist and a disgraced reporter whose greatest claim to fame was doxing a First Nations woman, appeared before committee to talk about Russian disinformation. Now, I assume she got the invite because she's a far-left extremist who is constantly railing against anybody who doesn't agree with her, who is constantly trying to run people down who have the slightest disagreement with in her very hardline far-left extreme ideology. Now, her opening statement was all we got because there was a suspicious package sent into the House of Commons, and they had to clear they cleared the place. And honestly, I think it might have done her a favor and kind of robbed us of some very comedic content. Nonetheless, the 5 minutes she did get to speak is certainly a lot to be watching. So let's enjoy that together.
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. This is obviously a very important topic and I have some big feelings about it. So to kick things off, I'm sure you all remember the Freedom Convoy, yeah? Well, as part of my coverage at the time, I joined several Telegram channels and groups where organizers and supporters gathered to exchange everything from planning details to fringe conspiracy theories. And you might not have realized this, but it was actually just days after the convoy, actually you guys probably do know this, just days after the convoy that Russia invaded Ukraine. So it was really interesting, an interesting time to be monitoring all of those Telegram channels, because all of a sudden, the ones that have been posting about the convoy and COVID, groups with tens of thousands of members primed to distrust experts, government, media, and institutions, shifted to posting about Russia's invasion of Ukraine, often claiming that Russia's invasion was actually justified because of reasons the government and the mainstream media won't tell you. This illustrates something that experts have said time and time again. Russia identifies the areas where we're most prone to polarization and pours gasoline on the fire that we already built ourselves. Don't just take my word for it, though. You can take it from Russia. In the documents the DOJ released in September in the US, we saw details from Russia's Good Old USA project and its guerrilla media campaign in the United States. Those documents show Russia identified existing sources of polarization to then exploit. The, quote, campaign topics they plan to focus on included stuff like what they called the, quote, threat of crime coming from people of color and immigrants, and, quote, risk of job loss for white Americans, and what they called, quote, privileges for people of color, perverts, and disabled. So that gives you a sense of the kinds of divisions Russia focused on exacerbating. It's got a lot in common with what I would call the right-wing grifter sphere and what comes out of there, where people rail against immigration, attack diversity and inclusion, pearl clutch about anti-white racism, and oppose trans rights. Like, those are the kinds of topics you hear from people like Tim Pool, Benny Johnson, and Lauren Southern. And those are the same influencers who ended up on the payroll at Tenet Media, which Russia was allegedly funding to spread its talking points. If we accept the premise that Russia never influenced their editorial decisions, as these influencers claimed after the fact, that implies these folks are so good at dividing and polarizing Western society that Russia likely saw it as a good investment to just fund them to make more of their organic content. Yikes. When we indulge in divisive, conspiratorial, and often hateful rhetoric, we are doing Russia a favor. Because a society that doesn't believe in institutions, in science, in journalism, in the validity of experts, in the value of taking care of each other and the importance of a shared reality is a society where democracy and stability is under threat. So a note to the politicians who use this same kind of divisive and conspiratorial rhetoric: consider what it means that Russia engages in the same tactics when it tries to undermine our democracy. Don't make it easier for them. I want to touch on one last slightly boring but super important topic. When it comes to online disinformation, I want to emphasize the importance of taking action against Google's monopoly on digital ads. See, advertisers don't know where their ads go anymore. They take their ad spend, they give it to a company like Google, who says it'll reach, say, women aged 25 to 35 who want to buy a car. But it's actually very hard for advertisers to know where their ads end up, because Google and a bunch of middlemen place those ads for them. When an industry group tried to track this last year, 3% of the international digital ad spend, which is on track to hit $1 trillion next year, went to a, quote, unknown delta. That's billions of dollars. In the course of my reporting, I've seen ads for the US government mint placed on Iranian websites that are likely sanctioned. I've seen ads for the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints on a porno website. Do you think those advertisers wanted to fund those websites? And do you think, if they had the choice, they'd rather fund disinformation websites than actual journalism? But advertisers can't demand transparency on where all their ads actually go. They can't demand better from Google because it's the only game in town. Breaking up Google's monopoly and ensuring advertisers know what they're funding would be one incredibly effective way of ripping a profit motive from several disinformation websites. With that, I am happy to take your questions.
Oh my. This is a far left expert trying to talk to you. I love the idea that she's putting all of these things out, saying that they are the conspiracy without any support, except, of course, some DOJ documents, and everything in her comment was about America because she's on the far left. So she's obsessed with the United States of America, like she can't stop thinking about it. Yet everything that she talked about in an unsubstantiated, right? The trucker convoy is linked now to the invasion of Ukraine. I mean, do the math on that. Then she proceeds to tell you that we have to be careful we don't get involved in conspiratorial thinking. I think that's a great idea, Miss Gilmore. I agree with you. I believe that you should put the Kool-Aid down and just take a few deep breaths to, listen to your own words. Of course, being on the far left, we know that Miss Gilmore can't critique herself. She can't tell herself that she's behaving in the way that she's criticizing. In her mind, as long as you agree with her ideology, it's fine, no matter what you do. She's one of these people that thinks that people don't have the right to complain. The list of things that she put in there are now coming very true, by the way. I don't know if she's missed the headlines. I don't know if she's just maybe a little bit too hopped up on whatever she is on in this particular meeting, whether it be adrenaline, coffee, or other. I think that she did herself, she got lucky by having that alarm go off in the building and making everyone evacuate, all of the politicians go to their safe spaces and all that kind of stuff. Because there is no way in the world that she could have withstood any kind of cross-examination from a conservative. And probably the Bloc would have torn her to pieces too, because in this particular committee, the Bloc is hard. The Bloc wants to understand what's going on, right? They're trying to protect CBC radio. So that kind of display might have ended up for her looking very bad, which is unfortunate for you and I, because it's really nice when we expose these conspiratorial thinkers for who they really are. It's unfortunate that they can't see the forest for the trees, that they can't understand that they are actually the ones that are perpetuating the conspiracy, that a person disagreeing with them is not a person who's evil and vile. I mean, I get that that's what they've been trying to tell you since 2010 or even sooner than that, but that's just not the case. We have the right to disagree with you. People have the right to decide that they want to live in their country in a certain manner. And I don't believe for 1 second that the trucker convoy cared in the slightest whether or not, I certainly don't believe that Russia cared of the trucker convoy what their opinion was on their invasion of Ukraine. But of course you have to, when you're a conspiratorial thinker like Miss Gilmore, you have to try and link together the most, the far reaching ideas of that. It's very telling that she came on there and tried to talk to everybody like she was in the room full of her girlfriends with their little, facial expressions and very immature or unprofessional at the very best behavior. I just wanted to share it with you because I think that she embarrassed herself personally. If I went into a committee meeting filled with elected members of parliament who were addressing what could be a very serious topic on misinformation, and I started talking about how Google puts too many commercials up, I think I might want to bury my head in the sand, as the expression goes. All right, I want to encourage you all to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this channel with all of your socials. Thank you for listening. I will talk to you next time.